You don't chase billionaires. You don't grovel before them. You don't obsess over their habits, their homes, their networks, or their net worth. You don't run after the wealthy like a shadow follows the light, forever behind, never arriving. For the light you are seeking is not theirs, it is your own. You have been hypnotized by a lie that wealth belongs to the few, that it is something to earn, to deserve, to climb toward, that it lives far away in the gated neighborhoods and executive suites of this world, when in truth, wealth is as close as your tongue, as near as your next decree, as present as your breath. For the kingdom of God is not locked behind a vault or controlled by men in suits. It is within you, waiting to be spoken into form by the voice of dominion. This world teaches you to idolize those who appear to have power, to mimic the voice of the rich, to read their books, to trace their morning routines like a ritual of conversion, hoping that one day the magic might rub off, that if you get close enough, maybe some of it will fall on you like crumbs from the banquet table. But I tell you this, crumbs are for dogs. You are a child of the Most High. You do not beg for provision. You do not beg for favor. You do not beg for recognition. You do not beg to be chosen. You speak as one who already has, and the word obeys. I say unto you, stop worshiping billionaires, for every time you do, you shrink your own power. You crown their status as a god and kneel in the sanctuary of inferiority. But the truth is this: the billionaire you admire is but a mirror, and the wealth they hold is a shadow of the infinite supply already encoded in your divine image. You are not meant to chase them. You are meant to speak like them, but not with ego, not with ambition, not with mimicry, but with sacred identity, the kind that knows, I was never meant to serve money. I was meant to command it. For the word is the beginning of all things, and I say it again, not for poetry, but for law. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. And if the Word was God, then your word, when spoken in alignment with truth, is not mere noise, it is law. It is legislation. It is the hammer that breaks the rock, the gavel that finalizes the verdict, the seed that summons the harvest. It is not the rich who create reality. It is the righteous who speak it into being. And righteousness is not morality. It is alignment. It is the state of oneness between your soul and the divine design. It is to say, I and the Father are one, and mean it. So let me ask you with fire in my voice and clarity in my spirit. Are you chasing what you should be commanding? Are you following what you should be forming? Are you watching the rich when you should be walking in wealth? For wealth is not a result. It is a realm. It is not something you touch when your business scales or your followers rise. It is something you enter when your word returns to its throne. You don't chase the billionaire. You speak and you become one. And what is the difference between a chaser and a creator? The chaser moves from fear, hoping to earn. The creator moves from faith, knowing they already are. One reaches, the other reigns. One begs, the other builds. One follows men, the other follows law. And you, my friend, must decide now, who do you follow? The illusion of the world or the law of the spirit? The noise of men or the voice within? Because every word you speak builds your world. And if you speak like a subject, you will dwell in limitation. But if you speak like a king, all of heaven and earth will rearrange themselves to obey your command. So come, step out of the crowd, come out of the comparison, come out of the illusion that says, they have it and I do not. Come out of the grave of imitation and rise into the high seat of your inheritance. For you are not meant to be impressed by wealth. You are meant to express it. You are not designed to chase supply. You are fashioned to declare it. You are not supposed to wonder what billionaires know. You are called to speak the word and become one. You cannot walk in dominion while kneeling in comparison, and you cannot possess your land while your eyes are on someone else's throne. The soul that compares is the soul that delays, and I tell you truly, comparison is not just a distraction, it is a spell. And many are under it without even knowing. Many are laboring not in faith, but in performance, trying to prove, to earn, to outrun the ghost of not enough. And they call it hard work, they call it ambition, they call it hustle, but heaven calls it forgetfulness. For to strive after what is already yours is not diligence, it is disobedience to the law of identity. And you must see it clearly now. You must come face to face with the root of the exhaustion you feel, for it is not because you are lazy, it is not because you are unworthy, it is not because you are behind, it is because you are using the wrong law. You are under the law of imitation, not incarnation. You are watching instead of speaking. You are scrolling instead of decreeing. You are rehearsing their story instead of commanding your own. And every minute you spend thinking someone else is ahead of you, you are stepping out of the only position that has power, alignment with God as your source, as your voice, as your treasury, as your audience of one. Because let me tell you, the world teaches you to admire power, but God teaches you to embody it. The world tells you to follow the path, but Spirit tells you to open your mouth and create the path. And if you've been walking through life believing that someone else's money means your lack, that their visibility means your delay, that their platform means your silence, then you've been living under the false religion of scarcity, and it must be cast out now in the name of truth. For what is hustle but the gospel of fear in disguise? What is obsession with timing but distrust in divine sequence? What is envy but the soul's amnesia of its own inheritance? I say to you, break the spell. You were never meant to chase anyone. You were never meant to follow the tracks of the wealthy in the hope that you might catch a scent of success. You were meant to speak, to declare, to legislate, to call the end from the beginning and let the angels run on your word. You are not a clone. You are not a follower. You are not a brand waiting to be seen. You are the word in motion. And when you speak with divine authority, the laws of wealth, the laws of favor, the laws of timing, the laws of visibility, and the laws of harvest must obey you, not because of effort, not because of education, not because of exposure, but because of alignment, because of identity, because of law. I have seen it over and over. Men and women who hustle for years, who burn their lives trying to mimic the moves of the rich, who mold themselves into smaller versions of what they think success looks like, who lose their voice chasing another man's tone, who silence their word in pursuit of another man's approval. And I've watched them collapse, not for lack of talent, not for lack of action, but for lack of revelation. They were never told that the most powerful voice in their life was their own, not the gurus, not the billionaires, not the trending influencers, but their own, when aligned with spirit. And if this is you, if you have felt behind, if you have spent your energy trying to earn your place at someone else's table, if you have bent your back in hopes of being seen by someone who has what you want, then this is your moment of return, your moment to reclaim the throne you abandoned, your moment to rise out of the algorithm and into the atmosphere of faith. The kind of faith that doesn't knock on doors, but speaks and sees them open. The law does not respond to imitation. The law does not respond to jealousy. The law does not respond to hustle. The law responds to the word. The law responds to boldness. The law responds to faith. And if you will speak from the position of already having, already being, already walking in divine supply, then the law will respond not with delay, not with resistance, but with manifestation, because the law cannot ignore the voice of truth spoken in dominion. So let it be known now. Your days of chasing are over. Your season of comparing is closed. You are not the echo of someone else's wealth. You are the sound of divine supply in this generation. You have been taught to chase, to attract, to hustle in circles around a prize that looks always just out of reach, like a dangling reward at the end of some ever-lengthening timeline. But I tell you now, you do not attract what you beg for. You do not attract what you worry over. You do not attract what you admire from a distance with silent longing and hushed insecurity. You assume what is already yours by divine right. You declare what already belongs to you in the invisible, and by speaking it into law, you activate the bridge that makes the unseen substance of wealth become visible form in your life, in your bank, in your body, in your days, and in your destiny. This is not the law of motivation. This is not the law of probability or possibility or percentile or hustle or timing. This is the law of the Word, the law that rules every other law, the law that was present before banks and governments and markets and economies ever existed, the law that sits higher than the throne of capitalism or reputation or digital validation, the law that formed the earth itself. For what does Genesis say? It does not say that God built. It does not say that God labored. It does not say that God traded or campaigned or climbed. It says, He spoke, "Let there be light," and there was light. "Let the waters be gathered," and they were gathered. "Let the earth bring forth," and it brought forth. The voice came before the vision. The word came before the world. And you, made in that same image, born under that same law, have inherited the same authority, but you have used it for the wrong kingdom. You have used your voice to narrate lack, to entertain fear, to chronicle hardship, to echo statistics, to recite the news, to declare defeat before ever consulting the heavens, to agree with appearances instead of aligning with spirit. And then you ask why wealth feels far, why supply feels slow, why favor seems to land on someone else's house. But I say again, you do not attract what you wish for, you assume what you are. And assumption is not imagination, it is embodiment, it is declaration, it is possession in the invisible that makes way for possession in the visible. When a man says, "I am rich," he does not wait for the money to arrive to prove his point. He speaks because in divine mind it is already done, already stored, already assigned, already circulating, already complete. "Thou shalt decree a thing," the scripture says, "and it shall be established unto thee." Not someday, not if conditions are favorable, not if the market permits or the hiring manager agrees or the algorithm boosts your name. It says, shall. It is a spiritual shall. It is a metaphysical guarantee. It is divine legislation. And when you speak it with conviction, with alignment, with no wavering in your posture or pitch or principle, then heaven cannot withhold what earth seems to resist, for heaven does not traffic in delay. Heaven traffics in design, and every word spoken in faith is a blueprint handed to the angels who execute it with speed and precision and holy immediacy. Stop waiting to feel wealthy. Speak wealth and let your feeling catch up. Stop asking for a sign. Speak the word and the signs will follow. Stop looking for validation from men. Speak with the authority of one who has already been validated by heaven. The law is not emotion-based. The law is not circumstance-based. The law is not consensus-based. The law is word-based. You do not need to feel rich to be rich. You do not need to look rich to be rich. You do not need to prove richness to others to become the embodiment of spiritual abundance. You need only speak, and speak in such a way that the word cannot return void, for it was not sent out in suggestion or apology or doubt, but in royal clarity, in divine surety, in unshakable rhythm that calls forth substance from the unseen, and forces the so-called facts of the natural world to bow to the higher government of spoken dominion. This is how the law works. This is why the wealthy who know not God still seem to prosper, because they unknowingly, intuitively, perhaps instinctively, use the law of the word. They say what they want. They expect it. They walk toward it. And most believers sit in silence, in hesitation, in spiritual bondage, rehearsing verses but not speaking decrees, praying with fear instead of commanding with joy, kneeling in hope instead of rising in word. But that will not be you anymore. From this moment forward, you shift. You understand now. You speak now. You stand in divine identity and you say, I am not becoming rich. I am rich because I am aligned with the one who owns all silver, all gold, all supply, all substance, all provision, all increase, all expansion, and all overflow. I do not chase wealth. I do not attract wealth. I speak wealth because I am wealth. Let us now cast down the golden calf you've been secretly worshiping in your mind, the billionaire on the pedestal, the imagined master of wealth whose face you've memorized and whose name you speak more than your own divine identity. For I must tell you plainly, if you have spent your spiritual life admiring the rich more than declaring yourself one with divine substance, then you have not walked in power, but in performance, not in law, but in illusion, and you have bowed to the outer god of personality while ignoring the inner law of principle. You must understand that no billionaire, no matter how admired or envied or featured on magazine covers or headlines, holds more metaphysical authority than you do, for they are not the source. They are simply the effect, the echo, the shadow of a spoken word they may not even understand they have activated. Some may call it mindset, confidence, vision, but I tell you it is always law, always speech, always assumption taking shape. When they say, I'm building an empire, and the world nods in agreement, they are using the exact law of faith you were given at birth. The same law Jesus used when he said, Lazarus, come forth. The same law that formed creation itself. But while they speak boldly and command results, too many children of light hesitate and whisper, too afraid to look arrogant, too nervous to be wrong, too deferential to status, too trained by religion to speak with the voice of royalty. And so I speak directly to your spirit now. Stop bowing to the idol of the billionaire. Stop quoting their habits while ignoring the holy authority in your own mouth. Stop pretending that proximity to the rich makes you richer in spirit. You were not created to chase. You were created to command. You were not built to copy. You were anointed to decree. And the law does not respond to how much you admire someone. The law responds to how clearly and boldly you declare what is already yours by divine right. The billionaire is not a god. They are a demonstration, often unknowing, of divine law. They are not your model. Christ is. They are not your source. God is. And the Christ within you, the divine image, the Word made flesh, the indwelling kingdom, does not kneel before any human empire. It builds its own. It speaks universes into form. It does not flatter wealth. It embodies it. Do you not remember? The kingdom of God is within you, not around you, not hidden behind algorithms, venture capital, market trends, or networking events. It is not locked behind someone else's gate. It is not waiting for your follower count or your investment portfolio or your blue checkmark or your next pitch deck. The kingdom is not delayed. The kingdom is not denied. The kingdom is now. The kingdom is voice activated. The kingdom is law governed. The kingdom is already yours, and it does not need to mimic billionaires to bring forth supply. You have a greater source. You have a higher seat. You have a spiritual treasury that cannot run dry. A covenant of provision that cannot be revoked, a name above every name, and that name is I am. So speak no more as one beneath. Speak as one who knows. Say now, I do not envy the rich. I do not perform for their approval. I do not audition for a seat at their table. I build the table. I set the feast. I bless the bread. I speak the word, and the overflow comes to meet me. Because I am no longer the servant of admiration, I am the master of alignment. Let this be the moment your tongue breaks its allegiance to inferiority. Let this be the hour your mind divorces itself from the illusion that power lives outside of you. Let this be the day you no longer look up to those who only stand where you refuse to speak from. For the Christ within you is not a silent observer. He is a speaker of worlds. And if he lives in you, then so does the throne, so does the gold, so does the word, so does the crown. You don't need to be in a room with the rich to be rich. You don't need their methods. You need your own mouth. For if you could see what I see in the spirit, you would see a treasury hovering, a throne awaiting its heir, a host of angelic messengers carrying scrolls marked with your name. waiting not for your effort, but for your word. Say it then. Say it now. I speak as one who already owns. I speak as one seated in heavenly places. I speak as one joined to the Christ within, and by this authority I do not chase. I command, I do not imitate. I originate. I am no longer the admirer, I am the architect. I am the wealth. Let us walk together now, not toward a palace built by hands, but into a throne room not made with brick or marble or stained glass, but with breath and decree and divine consciousness. For the seat of power you are searching for is not across a continent or behind a locked gate or earned through resumes or portfolios or introductions or contracts. It is not guarded by gatekeepers, nor priced by bankers, nor awarded by applause, but placed within you by God Himself the moment you took your first breath, and it has remained there, untouched and undiminished, though your eyes have looked elsewhere, though your tongue has betrayed its authority, though your spirit has knelt in false humility at the feet of lesser thrones made of social illusion and human status and outward display. The truth is, you have never lost your place, only your memory of it, and I have come to restore it. You see, there is a throne room in the spirit, and it is not a metaphor of distance, but a reality of identity. It is not a symbol of someday, but a substance of now. And when you speak the word in alignment with divine law, when you say, I am with clarity, boldness, and reverent authority, you are not hoping for a better future. You are ascending to the seat already reserved for you in the heavenlies. And I speak not of arrogance, for arrogance is rooted in self, while dominion is rooted in source. I speak not of worldly pomp, for kingdoms of dust rise and fall, but of the eternal reign of those who speak in union with the Christ within. For the kingdom of God is voice-activated, and those who do not speak do not reign. Now picture this with me, a vast chamber of unshakable light, a holy stillness filled with glory, and in the center, a throne not made of gold or silver, but of spoken truth and absolute faith. And as you approach, you do not crawl, you do not beg, you do not tremble as one unworthy. You walk upright, cloaked not in effort but in identity, robed not in ego but in inheritance. And you do not knock for permission, you do not wait to be called, you simply speak, and the throne recognizes its voice. This is the law of alignment. This is the mystery hidden in plain sight. This is what Jesus knew when He said, I and the Father are one, and what you must declare when you say, I and my supply are one. I and abundance are one. I and the infinite are not separated by appearances. I am one with it now, and therefore I speak from the center, not the sidelines. For the throne is not in a palace far away, it is in your mouth. The scepter is not held by others, it is your word. The kingdom does not come with observation, it comes with decree. And so I must ask you, how long will you pace outside your own throne room, peeking through the windows at others seated, waiting for some divine invitation that was already written into your soul before time began? When will you stop speaking like a visitor and start declaring like a ruler? For your voice is the key, your word is the gavel, your mouth is the gatekeeper of realms unseen, and until you speak with the force of one who knows they are crowned, wealth will not obey, opportunities will not kneel, and divine provision will not break through, not because it is withheld, but because it is waiting for its master. You don't chase the throne, you don't campaign for it, you don't earn it through popularity, validation, or appearances. You inherit it through identity and activate it through the word. And if you are waiting for someone else to validate your seat, to confirm your access, to hand you a microphone or a title or a platform, then you are still operating as a beggar with a crown under your bed, unaware that the robe has always been yours, the authority has always been in your lungs, and the wealth you seek has always been standing at the door, waiting to be summoned by a voice bold enough to say, I am. So speak now as one who reigns. Speak not to the world as a subject but as a sovereign. Say aloud, I do not crawl before wealth. I do not chase the rich. I do not mimic kings. I am already crowned in spirit. I reign through the word. My supply answers to my voice. My wealth knows my name. I speak not from earth hoping for heaven. I speak from heaven, commanding earth. I sit upon the throne of alignment, and from this place all things respond. Let me tell you now, not of theories or hopes or poetic metaphors only, but of a man, an ordinary man by the world's standards, a man who had been bent beneath the yoke of labor, striving, trying, proving, attempting to make something of himself through the sweat of his brow and the ache of his effort and the torment of comparison, who had done all that was asked of him by the systems of earth, who had knocked on doors that never opened, attended interviews where his name was mispronounced and his soul dismissed, a man who had grown tired, soul-weary from the endless pursuit of enough, until one day, exhausted and face down on the floor, he remembered what I am telling you now, that he did not need another strategy, nor a referral, nor a break, nor a miracle from outside himself, but only to rise and speak the law that had always been waiting in his mouth, unused, unsummoned, and unhonored. And this man who had nothing left to lean on, this man who had tried coaching and budgeting and networking and still found the door bolted, this man finally said aloud, one single sentence with no fanfare, no crowd, no motivational backdrop, only a deep, trembling sincerity. I walk in divine abundance, not worldly effort. And he said it again, and again, and again, as the walls mocked him, as his own mind resisted him, as the rent loomed and the cupboards lay hollow, he said it still. And where before he had said, I can't make ends meet, now he said, my supply is endless. Where he had said, I'll try harder next month, he now said, abundance finds me now. And slowly, invisibly at first, then undeniably, the law began to stir. The first week, a friend who hadn't called in years reached out with a contract offer, small but unexpected. The second week, an old invoice, long written off, was paid in full. The third week, he was introduced, without asking, to a business owner looking for exactly what he offered. By the fourth week, he was not just surviving, but commanding. His tone changed, his posture changed, his words no longer flinched before bills or bent beneath obligation. He became the voice of provision in his household, not the echo of panic. And I tell you this, beloved, not to impress you with the outcome, but to show you the pattern. For the pattern is always the same. Word before wealth, decree before door, identity before income. He did not hustle his way into wealth. He spoke himself into alignment with the source of all wealth. And this is what I am shouting to your soul now. If you are weary, stop begging. If you are late on the bill, stop narrating it. If you are tired of hoping someone will save you, stop waiting. Open your mouth and declare the truth that has been buried under human reasoning and emotional hesitation. Say it until your soul believes it. Say it until your circumstances yield. Say it until heaven and earth align beneath the force of your decree. Do not say, when the money comes, I will speak differently. You speak differently, and the money comes. Do not say, I'll stop being afraid when I have more. You cast out fear with the word, and the more arrives. For the spoken word is not ornamental, it is instrumental. It is not a flourish of positive thinking. It is the engine of divine manifestation. And when this man said, I walk in divine abundance, not worldly effort, he was not describing his reality, he was commanding it. Let this be your shift. Let this be your practice. Let this be your moment of throne recovery. Open your mouth today, not tomorrow, not when things feel better, not when your bank account looks friendly, but now, this moment, as you hear me, say aloud, I do not chase money. I do not wrestle with bills. I do not panic at appearances. I walk in divine abundance. I am fully funded by spiritual law. God is my supply. The kingdom's treasury is open and I am its rightful recipient. And as you say this, not once, but daily, not casually, but with reverence, not doubtingly, but with dominion, you will see that the world outside begins to mirror the world you are finally speaking from within. That is the law, and that is the story, not just of one man, but of anyone bold enough to stop begging and start declaring. Now listen to me, and listen with the ear of your spirit wide open and alert to truth. For here we enter the first of the divine habits, not earthly repetition, but sacred instruction. A habit not formed by logic, but forged by law. And it is this: you must speak the identity, not the illusion. You must proclaim what is true in spirit, even when the world shows you its opposite reflection, even when your senses shriek against you, even when your bank statement denies you, even when the mirror says you are behind, the balance says you are broke, and the news says there is not enough. You must not bow to the illusion. You must not echo the appearance. You must not narrate the lie. You must not give your breath to the temporary, but instead, with unwavering tongue and eyes fixed on the unseen, you must say, I am a multimillionaire by divine right. You do not say it to become it. You say it because it is already true. For the I am is not a wish. It is not a dream. It is not a future possibility that hangs in the clouds of maybe. It is the eternal, unshakable identity of God expressed through you now. You do not say, I will be rich someday, for someday is the language of slaves, and I hope to have enough is the language of beggars, and I'm trying my best is the language of those still ruled by appearances. But you, chosen one, divine mouthpiece, temple of spoken law, must say, with no trace of apology, no flinch of fear, no softening of tone, I am wealthy now. I am abundance embodied. I am divine supply made visible in the earth. And when you say this, you are not speaking fantasy. You are not role-playing success. You are not pretending you are someone else. You are finally stepping into the truest dimension of who you already are in the unseen. You are aligning your tongue with your spirit instead of your fear, and that alignment begins to summon, to shake, to shift, to call forth the things which be not as though they were, because that is how the world was made, and that is how your wealth shall appear. And I tell you this, you must say it when your hands are empty, when your inbox is quiet, when your bills sit unopened, when your friends laugh at your boldness, when your emotions beg you to shrink, when your memories remind you of failure, when your history contradicts your faith. Yes, even then, and especially then, you must say it. For the only time the word carries true power is when it is spoken against opposition, when it is declared in the face of resistance, when it is held high like a banner against the winds of doubt, because then it is not an echo of what is. It is the creative force of what shall be. So I tell you now, stop announcing your process and start declaring your position. Stop chronicling your climb and start proclaiming your crown. Stop using your voice to describe the mountain and start using it to move the mountain. You are not poor becoming rich. You are wealth awakening from sleep. You are not a nobody trying to become somebody. You are divine royalty recovering your robe and your ring. You are not on a journey to abundance. You are abundance taking a breath and finding its name again. And that name is I am. That decree is wealth. That identity is settled. That law is unbreakable. That rhythm is yours to speak. And speak it you must, for until you do, the substance will wait in the wings, unformed, unshaped, unmanifest, like a servant waiting on orders, like a harvest waiting on a shout. Say it now, not with timid voice but with royal decree. I am a multi-millionaire by divine right. I am not chasing wealth. I am walking as wealth. I do not wait to see it to believe it. I say it to see it. For I live not by sight, but by law. And the law says my word is the cause, my world is the effect. Let me tell you plainly and with the boldness of a trumpet sounding in the courts of heaven. Nothing appears in the world until it has first been declared in the Spirit. And if you are waiting to see before you speak, you are still under the dominion of matter. You are still in the wilderness of doubt. You are still living by effect and not by cause, by appearance and not by authority, by fear and not by faith. And I tell you, in the name of the law that never fails, in the name of the Christ mind that governs the true realm of abundance, in the name of your inheritance as a spiritual being sent here, not to react, but to reign, You must speak before you see. You must declare before it is visible. You must call it good while it still looks barren. You must bless it while it still looks empty. You must walk as if it is finished when nothing has begun. For this is the secret rhythm of divine creation. This is the sacred breath of those who create with God. And hear me now. Do not wait for the email to speak of increase. Do not wait for the deposit to say you are funded. Do not wait for the applause to say you are worthy. Do not wait for the proof to speak your truth. For the moment you wait, you reverse the order of divine law, and you hand your crown to the shadows, and you declare to the invisible substance that it must obey the evidence instead of the word, and that is not dominion, that is delay, that is not wealth, that is wandering. And I say unto you, that season must end, for you were never meant to live on the crumbs of what is seen, but to feast on the certainty of what is spoken. When God said, "Let there be light," there was no flicker, no glow, no sign of illumination. But the word went forth anyway, and that word pulled light from the silence, form from the void, brilliance from the nothing, and the light obeyed, because light does not respond to thought alone, nor to emotion alone, but to word, divine word, spoken with certainty, spoken with stillness, spoken with command. And when you open your mouth with that same rhythm, when you speak to your finances as if they are already full, when you call your account blessed though it seems lean, when you declare yourself funded though the invoice stands unpaid, you are not pretending. You are not playing games with yourself. You are legislating reality from the throne of heaven's authority, and all that is unformed begins to gather into form, not because you earned it, not because you deserved it, but because you dared to say it. Speak before you see, and you will see what you speak. Speak from the center of divine knowing, and the earth will shape itself to reflect your decree. Speak not to inform the world, but to instruct it. Speak not to update others, but to align the ethers. Speak not to gain sympathy, but to demonstrate sovereignty. For your words are not mere vibrations. They are assignments. They are blueprints. They are maps drawn in the invisible realm that substance must obey. And every time you speak as if it already is, you are building the bridge from heaven to earth, from idea to income, from unseen to seen. Do not say, "It's coming someday." Say, "It is here now." Do not say, "I hope it happens." Say, "I know it is done." Do not say, "I'm waiting on provision." Say, "Provision has already met me." Do not say, "I'm working toward abundance." Say, "I am abundance walking in motion." And do not say these things once, or twice, or 3 times a week when you feel good and the sun is shining. No, say them daily. Say them when you feel foolish. Say them when it costs you everything but your word. Say them when no one else believes you. Say them when the world laughs. Say them when the storm howls. Say them when the mirror mocks you. For these are the conditions under which the word proves itself faithful. Now take your place, not as a commentator of life, but as a commander of truth. Do not wait for wealth to speak for you. Speak for it. Do not wait for confirmation. Be the confirmation. Declare now, "Though I see nothing, I speak everything. Though I hold nothing, I call all things mine. Though I feel nothing, I walk as one who reigns." For this is the mystery of faith, the paradox of power, the miracle of the spoken word. It appears only after you stop needing to see it first. Now let us cut through one of the most persistent illusions that binds the soul in shadows and delays its inheritance. Not the illusion of lack, for that we have already shattered, but the subtler, more seductive lie. The belief that certain people carry special favor, that wealth belongs to a few exalted names, that divine provision is linked to charisma, genetics, status, or clever branding, that some are chosen by accident and others are left to crawl. And I tell you, with the fire of eternal truth in my voice, that this lie must be cast down and burned at the altar of law. For there is no personality that outranks principle, and there is no mortal voice that overrides the voice of divine law spoken through you. And if you bow to another's image while denying your own identity, you delay the very flow you seek. You become a worshiper of reflections instead of the one who commands the mirror, and I say, it ends now. You must understand this. Those who walk in wealth are not walking in a mystery. They are walking in rhythm. They are not chosen by accident. They are aligned by agreement. They are not favored by whim. They are favored by word. And if you believe that some billionaire has secret access that you cannot tap, you have already chained yourself to the lie that substance answers to status instead of speech. But it is not status that heaven responds to. It is not personality, charm, or branding. It is law. It is decree. It is the consistency of the tongue speaking truth against every lie, and if they are bold and you are timid, it is not because they are better. It is because they are less afraid to say what they have not yet seen. Stop worshiping the image of success and start becoming the word that creates it. Stop idolizing the personality and start mastering the principle. You do not need to mimic their morning routines or chase their podcasts or quote their philosophies as if they carry divine rank. You need only to remember that the same source flows through your lungs, the same law moves through your voice, the same spirit breathes through your being, and when you speak not with borrowed identity but with divine authority, wealth no longer sees you as a seeker, it recognizes you as its architect. You are not a follower of men, you are a speaker of law. You are not a fan of wealth, you are a vessel of it. You are not a seeker of success stories. You are the demonstration of dominion. And if you have ever said, I wish I could be like them, then hear this now. You already are in the spirit, in the eternal now, in the unseen field of perfect supply. And the only gap between them and you is not money, is not platform, is not talent. It is declaration, it is identity. It is the tongue's unwillingness to bow to appearances. Say with me, divine law does not skip me. It flows through me. Say it again, not as a chant, but as a decree. Say it until your inner critic bows and your outer world shifts. Say it until every room you walk into hears the sound of someone who has stopped kneeling to man-made thrones and started sitting in the throne room of divine substance. You do not need to chase what others have. You only need to command what is already yours by right of alignment. From this moment forward, you will not be impressed by wealth. You will embody it. You will not be dazzled by the boldness of others. You will speak with equal fire. You will not scroll with longing. You will walk with dominion. For the day you stop worshiping the personalities of prosperity is the day you begin to embody the principle that creates it. Let the veil now be torn from the old illusion that God must be persuaded to give, that supply must be begged for, that heaven must be convinced to open, that money must be seduced or manipulated or petitioned through endless striving and sorrowful complaint. For I tell you, the great error of humanity is not that it lacks money, it is that it lacks recognition, and when you plead for that which is already yours, when you come to the altar of divine law with downcast eyes and trembling tongue, when you speak as a beggar rather than a blesser, when your prayer becomes a panic and your confession becomes complaint, you are not walking in truth. You are kneeling before a fiction, for heaven is not withholding. It is overflowing, and the gates are not closed. They are voice-activated, and the code that opens them is not suffering, not self-pity, not desperation, but gratitude, praise, and decree. You must learn this law and never forget it. The one who begs delays, but the one who blesses receives. The one who laments postpones, but the one who thanks attracts. The one who speaks from lack lengthens the absence, but the one who speaks from fullness multiplies what is unseen into what is now. I do not speak this as metaphor, but as immutable law. I do not offer it as encouragement. I declare it as spiritual mechanics, as invisible precision, as divine causation. For your tongue is not a thermometer reading your condition. It is the thermostat setting your world. And every time you beg, you reset the system back to lack. But every time you bless, you lift the vibration and summon the appearance of that which was always waiting. Let no one deceive you. Wealth does not respond to need. It responds to identity. It does not bow to pain. It bows to position. It does not come to the one who moans. It comes to the one who moves in divine assurance. If you speak as one abandoned by God, you will see more delays. But if you speak as one seated with God, as one already provided for, as one already supplied, even before the envelope arrives, even before the account updates, even before the deal closes, then the law, which cannot lie and cannot fail, will hasten to perform the word you have spoken, not because of your emotion, not because of your effort, but because your word matched the rhythm of divine truth. Therefore I say, bless your account while it is still low. Bless your wallet while it seems thin. Bless your rent before it is paid. Bless your table before the food arrives. Bless the money that has not yet appeared. Bless the unseen harvest. Bless the empty envelope. Bless the email that hasn't come. Bless the phone call that has yet to ring. For when you bless what appears empty, you are declaring it full in spirit, and the substance of that fullness cannot resist the pull of the tongue aligned with heaven. Say aloud, "Thank you, Father, that wealth is mine now. I do not need to wait, to beg, to panic, or to doubt. I bless my finances, and my finances multiply. I bless my income, and it flows freely. I bless this day, and it unfolds with divine provision. I bless every expense, and it is met with ease and overflow. I bless every opportunity, and it expands without strain. I bless myself, not in pride, but in power, for I am the expression of divine abundance, and I walk in rivers of invisible gold." Speak like this before your breakfast. Speak like this before the fear rises. Speak like this when the bank sends its notice. Speak like this when the bill arrives. Speak like this when others tremble, when the world shakes, when the news predicts lack, when the crowds fall into panic. You rise into praise, not as a ritual, but as a revelation, not as superstition, but as science of the Spirit. For what you bless cannot remain bound, and what you praise cannot remain small, and what you honor in word cannot remain absent in form. From this moment forward, you do not chase. You do not weep. You do not bow to the idol of worry. You do not plead at the feet of systems. You do not pace the floor in fear. You do not whisper with doubt. You rise. You declare. You bless. You speak. And the money obeys. And the door swings open. And the divine release is set in motion. For heaven is not moved by volume. It is moved by vibration. It is not impressed by tears. It is activated by truth. And the greatest truth you can now embody is this: I am already supplied. I bless what I have. I bless what I do not yet see. And I bless what is becoming visible even now. Let us now pull back the curtain on what the world calls confidence, what the world calls vision, what the world calls success, and see it for what it truly is beneath the costume of strategy and the language of finance. For there are men and women upon this earth who walk as billionaires, not because they understand scripture, not because they study metaphysics, not because they hold sacred the law of the word consciously, but because, knowingly or not, they align themselves with it. They speak boldly, they expect greatly, they command outcomes without hesitation, and though they may never say the name of the Most High or bow before the altar of truth, they nevertheless walk in its rhythm and reap its reward. For the law is no respecter of persons, it is respecter of alignment. And so, while the masses wait for signs, while the church waits for permission, while the spiritual man waits for feelings, the bold declare and move, the bold speak and receive, the bold name and claim, the bold act as kings while others still crawl as servants of appearances. And I say to you now, do not confuse personality with principle. Do not envy those who wield wealth. Understand instead that they are merely participants in a universal law that is available to all. A law that responds not to religion or race or resume, but to vibration, to faith, to declaration, and to unwavering self-perception. And if the children of this world can harness it in ignorance, how much more should the children of light walk in its full dominion, with conscious reverence, with holy clarity, with unwavering boldness? What you admire in the billionaire is not their investments, not their companies, not their networks, not their intellect, but their certainty. Certainty that what they see in the mind shall appear in the hand. Certainty that the word they speak is already taking form. Certainty that doors will open, funds will flow, resources will rise, and problems will bow. Not because of who they are in the eyes of the world, but because of who they are in the tone of their tongue, and you must see it now, clearly and forever. Wealth is voice before it is vault. It is identity before it is income. It is proclamation before it is property. So while others copy their strategies, chase their interviews, idolize their lifestyles, you must rise higher, not by imitation but by invocation, not by grinding but by grounding, not by performance but by possession of your inner throne. And you must say, the same law that made them wealthy now moves through me. Not in competition, not in covetousness, but in consciousness, in recognition, in peace. For you do not need what they have. You are what they are when you speak what is true. Now hear this and never forget it. When a billionaire walks into a room, the room adjusts, not because of the money in their account, but because of the conviction in their speech, the nonchalance of their expectation, the stillness of their belief, the weight of their presence, which is not created by followers or fame or function, but by inner decree, by the knowing that nothing they desire is out of reach, nothing they imagine is impossible, nothing they declare is dismissed. And I ask you now, do you walk with that same voice? Do you carry that same command? Or have you forfeited your divine inheritance for the temporary illusion of humility that is really just fear in disguise? You must now replace the language of maybe, someday, if I'm lucky, with the language of law, of now, of certainty, of divine right. For wealth is not impressed by personality. It is magnetized by principle, and your voice, your spoken word, your daily decree must match the tone of one who does not chase money, but speaks as its master, one who does not beg opportunity, but commands manifestation, one who does not explain their value, but assumes their throne. Say this now. What I admire in others is already alive in me. What I see in them is proof of what I shall receive. What they speak boldly, I now speak with divine authority. What they assume unconsciously, I now claim by spiritual law. You do not need their face. You do not need their brand. You do not need their team. You need only your word, your breath, your voice, your vibration, your decree backed by heaven's eternal contract, signed in spirit, sealed in truth, and ready to release provision the moment you match its pitch. Let us now dissolve the final veil, the ancient spell of inferiority, the generational hypnosis of not enough, the deep inner echo that whispers in hidden corners of the soul, who do you think you are? For I say to you, that question has haunted prophets, sabotaged kings, silenced creators, and delayed miracles, and it must now be answered not with trembling apology, but with divine revelation, not with intellectual defense, but with spiritual authority. For you were never meant to compare, to chase, to prove, or to justify your inheritance. You were meant to speak the truth of who you are until the entire universe adjusts to your divine identity, until every atom realigns, until every system responds, until every shadow flees from the voice that no longer shakes in uncertainty, but resounds with heavenly certainty. I am not beneath them. I am built from the same divine pattern. You see, this sentence, though short in form, is volcanic in power, for it is not a statement of ego, but of essence, not of ambition, but of alignment, not of rebellion, but of return to origin, and when spoken not once, not casually, not flippantly, but daily, rhythmically, reverently, with full attention and breath and presence, it becomes the sword that severs the cords of inferiority, the key that unlocks the sealed vault of boldness, the hammer that breaks the glass ceiling of comparison, and the anthem that reawakens your sleeping dominion. For you were never created to worship other men, to envy their riches, to shrink in their presence, or to contort your voice into something palatable for those who forgot their own worth. You were created to radiate, to declare, to walk tall in the image of the Creator, to move through this world as a voice of divine substance clothed in flesh, to command, to decree, to embody. Repeat it now. I am not beneath them. I am built from the same divine pattern. Again. I am not beneath them. I am built from the same divine pattern. Again. I am not beneath them. I am built from the same divine pattern. Let the repetition not be vain, but volcanic, not intellectual, but incarnate, not passive, but prophetic, until the neural pathways rewire, until the cellular memory reconfigures, until the vibration stabilizes, until you no longer merely say it, but you become it, live it, exude it, embody it, and watch the very fabric of your experience reconfigure to match the voice that no longer echoes borrowed limitations but declares original truth. For inferiority is a parasite that survives only in the silence of the unspoken word. It cannot breathe in the atmosphere of daily decree. It cannot root itself in a soil that is saturated with truth. It cannot whisper shame when the trumpet of bold identity is sounding each morning from the throne of your spirit. And so I say to you now, if you have looked at others and felt small, if you have stood in rooms and felt invisible, if you have read their bios and felt irrelevant, if you have scrolled their accounts and felt like a ghost, it is not because they are more divine. It is because you have not yet fully claimed your divine pattern. And it is not humility to stay small. It is disobedience to truth. Let it be no more. Let inferiority be exiled today. Let the sentence burn on your tongue and carve new architecture in your speech, in your spine, in your spirit. I am not beneath them. I am built from the same divine pattern. That pattern is light. That pattern is wealth. That pattern is royalty. That pattern is legacy. That pattern is authority. That pattern is already encoded in your design, waiting not for your improvement, but for your announcement. Waiting not for your perfection, but for your permission. Waiting not for conditions, but for confession. You were never behind. You were just quiet. You were never lacking. You were just undecided. You were never disqualified. You were just muted by lies. And now the word rises. The decree activates. The truth erupts. The voice returns. And with it, wealth remembers your name. And now let me tell you the story of a woman not unlike yourself, a woman who lived not in palaces, not on stages, not behind high walls of celebrity or wealth, but in quiet quarters, in a small apartment on the third floor of a building no one would ever photograph. A woman who was not followed or known or applauded. A woman whose mailbox held more bills than invitations, whose phone never rang with miracles, whose daily routine looked to the world like repetition and smallness and obscurity, but who, through the invisible ritual of spoken law, became a living, breathing portal of divine reversal. For this woman did not advertise her affirmations. She did not post her prayers. She did not share her declarations with doubters or explain her rituals to those who could not see. She simply chose a sentence, a spiritual decree, and spoke it daily for 33 days, without fail, without pause, without contradiction, and the universe, obeying the precision of her vibration, responded not to her surroundings, but to her spoken seed. She chose her sentence carefully, reverently, not from hype, not from pressure, but from clarity, and she wrote it in her journal, taped it to her mirror, placed it beneath her pillow, and whispered it each morning before the coffee brewed, and each night before sleep claimed her mind, and the sentence was simple. Wealth flows to me as I sleep. Not dramatic, not flamboyant, not complex, just rhythmically true, quietly thunderous, absolutely aligned, and she did not speak it as a wish or a chant or a superstition, but as a law, as a fact, as a decree already established in the courts of heaven. And though she told no one, and though her bank account did not swell in the first week, and though her doubts occasionally tapped at the edges of her resolve, she remained faithful to the word. 33 days, no social media, no mastermind group, no brand, No breakthrough call, just the word. And then, on the 33rd morning, she woke to an envelope slid under her door, not by a neighbor, not by a delivery service, but by her landlord, who had received a letter addressed to her, hand-delivered from a law firm whose name she did not recognize. She opened it. Inside, legal notification of an inheritance, an estate left to her by a great-aunt she had not spoken to in years, a woman she barely remembered, but who had apparently been watching, remembering, planning, and loving from a distance. And in that envelope was not only a letter, but the release of $48,000 in immediate funds and a share in the sale of properties soon to follow. Now you may say, coincidence. You may say, good fortune. You may even say, lucky timing. But I say to you, by the authority of divine law, that her voice made the way, her words shaped the field, her unseen declaration was the architect of her visible reversal, and it did not come because she begged, or built a funnel, or chased opportunity, or perfected her performance. It came because she activated the one gift heaven never withholds, the power to speak with God, as God, for God, through the I am presence within. She did not shout, she did not hustle, she did not impress, she simply aligned, she simply agreed, she simply spoke what was true until the illusion dissolved. And you must now understand, this is not her story alone. This is your invitation, your instruction, your initiation into the ancient art of private power, the sacred science of invisible dominion, the spiritual certainty that what you speak in secret, heaven shouts from the rooftops of your reality. So I ask you, what will you speak for 33 days? What law will leave your lips each morning like fire? What truth will you whisper into the fabric of sleep until it reshapes your waking world? For you do not need an audience. You do not need applause. You do not need agreement. You need only your breath, your decree, your alignment, and your unwavering willingness to speak what is until what is appears. There is a law more ancient than gold, more silent than thunder, more powerful than logic or lineage or learning, and it is the law of recognition, the holy, immutable decree that nothing can recognize you, reward you, or respond to you until you recognize, reward, and respond to the truth of who you already are. For the universe does not deliver based on your needs, your work ethic, or your feelings. It delivers based on your vibration of identity, and identity is not a matter of title or achievement or public confirmation. It is the quiet, unwavering tone of your own self-declaration, the frequency you speak not with your voice alone, but with your thoughts, your choices, your posture, and your silence. And I say unto you now with spiritual urgency that the reason supply has been delayed, the reason wealth has appeared fickle or distant, the reason doors seem to open for others and not for you, is not because you are cursed or forgotten or unworthy, but because you have not yet stood in the courtroom of your own soul and testified, without contradiction or apology, that you are good soil, that you are trustworthy with treasure, that you are born of wealth and for wealth, not as a consumer of things but as a distributor of divine circulation. Do not mishear me. I am not asking if you believe you deserve a raise or a new car or an increase in status. I am asking if you believe, if you know, if you claim and proclaim that the essence of you is prosperity itself, not because of what you've earned, but because of whose breath you carry, not because of your bank balance, but because of your birthright, not because of what you've done, but because of what God has already finished. And this is the turning point, the pivot, the holy reversal. To see yourself not as a man or woman trying to become, but as a spirit already containing, already completed, already encoded with the signature of I am. For how can a field bear harvest if it sees itself as sand? How can a king command if he calls himself a servant? How can money obey if your voice does not sound like the voice of its maker? You must recognize yourself, not through the lens of your mistakes or your missed deadlines or your failed ventures, but through the lens of divine memory, divine intention, divine appointment. For your wealth does not come from the outside in, it comes from the inside out, and the soil of your recognition determines the fruit of your manifestation. And if you continue to speak as though you are behind, if you continue to measure yourself against timelines and benchmarks and trends, if you continue to declare what you are not instead of what you are, then the law cannot violate your own confession. The system of heaven cannot override the spell of your own smallness. You must now say with boldness, not someday, not maybe, not timidly, not conditionally, but with the flaming certainty of divine justice. I am good soil, I am trustworthy, I am prepared, I am equipped, I am ready to steward, to multiply, to circulate, and to bless with the millions that already exist in the unseen and now flow to me in perfect ways. Say it until your body agrees. Say it until your nervous system stops flinching. Say it until every unworthiness programmed into your spine begins to dissolve. Say it until the wealth that has been watching you from the corners of eternity begins to move toward you with speed, because it has finally heard a voice that sounds like its home. You do not need to become ready. You need to recognize that you already are. You do not need to convince anyone else, only yourself. You do not need to study the methods of men. You need to command with the mouth of God, for the wealth is not missing, the wealth is not confused, the wealth is not reluctant, the wealth is ready. The question is, are you? Now that you've seen the mirror and stopped kneeling before it, now that the false crown of inferiority has been removed, not by force, but by the fire of truth, now that the voice within you has remembered its original cadence, not as a beggar pleading, but as a builder commanding. Now we enter living sanctuary of decree, the place where words do not decorate life, but construct it, where language is not descriptive, but legislative, where every syllable sent forth from the mouth of dominion becomes law in the invisible and form in the visible. For your throne is not made of velvet or marble or gold, but of vibration, of tone, of unseen architecture that begins and ends with what you say daily, what you inscribe upon the air with faith, what you release into the silence and let heaven arrange without interference. And I say this now, as clearly as divine law allows. You cannot inherit what you do not pronounce. You cannot govern what you do not name. And you cannot walk in wealth while speaking as though you are waiting for it to begin. So I give you the practice, not a performance, not a magical incantation, but a throne room rehearsal, a speaking of what has always been true but has long gone unspoken in your world. And you will say it not to convince anyone, not even yourself at first, but to override the pattern of speech that has kept your treasure suspended in the clouds of maybe and someday and not yet. And you will speak it with breath and pause and rhythm, not rushing, not whispering, not doubting. And you will say, I am the voice of divine provision in this generation. I am the channel through which wealth flows into the world. I am the law of abundance made visible. I am the administrator of supernatural resources. I am a holy storehouse of increase. I am the royal steward of limitless supply. I am a multi-millionaire by divine right, not in pretense, not in fantasy, but in law, in truth, in design. And when you say it, you must stand taller, not because you are pretending to be someone you are not, but because your spine remembers the posture of divine memory, because your blood recognizes the vibration of spiritual inheritance, because your nervous system begins to bow, not to fear or fantasy, but to the law that has waited for your voice to rise in alignment and release it. You will say, money serves me. Wealth knows my name. Increase recognizes my gait. Favor travels ahead of me like a herald. Every dollar I touch multiplies. Every seed I sow returns pressed down, shaken together, and running over. I am the standard of holy prosperity in this hour. You will say this daily, not when you feel rich, not when you get the email, not when the account balance looks promising, but especially when it doesn't, especially when fear whispers, especially when nothing seems to move, because that is when kings speak, not after the victory, but before the battle turns. That is when the word carries power. not when it's easy, but when it's all you have left, and you must learn that the mouth of dominion does not echo emotion. It initiates reality. You don't need new followers. You don't need better timing. You don't need to chase validation. You need to declare, to enthrone, to announce yourself to the field of infinite supply as one who governs it by law, not need, by truth, not panic, by spirit, not strategy. And once your words are no longer a reaction to your world, but the reason your world exists, then you will see doors open that logic cannot explain. Clients appear that advertising cannot predict. Checks arrive that systems did not schedule, and ideas erupt that defy conventional success models, for you have not followed the way of man, you have walked in the speech of heaven. So now, rise daily and say your throne. Speak your throne. Walk your throne. Let it be heard in your hallway, in your car, in your heart. Let the treasury hear your tone and recognize its master. For you were not made to chase gold. You were made to call it. If you were to plant a seed into the soil and each morning go out to the garden and dig it up just to see if it had sprouted, if you were to disturb the earth, speak fear over the dirt, curse the silence, doubt the process, wonder aloud whether the soil was trustworthy or whether the rain had reached it or whether it had simply disappeared into the mystery of the unseen, what would happen to that seed, my friend? You know the answer. It would die, not because the earth was unfaithful, not because the sun had hidden its face, not because the seed itself was without life, but because the words and the hands and the fears of the sower had smothered its process and choked its destiny. And this is exactly what the undisciplined tongue does to wealth every single day, in the lives of those who speak light in the morning and darkness by noon, who decree increase one moment and complain of cost the next, who praise provision on Sunday and curse their paycheck on Monday, who affirm divine supply in prayer and speak fear into the grocery aisle, who declare I am wealthy in their journal and then sigh, I can't afford it at the checkout line. Do you not see the contradiction, the fracture, the spiritual double-mindedness that divides your harvest in half and feeds one portion to heaven while throwing the other into the fire? For every affirmation you speak is a seed of divine law, planted not only in the garden of your subconscious, but in the vibrational soil of the universe. And what you speak afterward is either water or poison, life or sabotage, blessing or block. And it is not enough to speak powerfully once. You must speak in alignment continually, not perfectly, but consistently, not with superstition, but with sacred responsibility. For the tongue is not just a flame, it is a lever, a spiritual command post, a throne of government, and the contradiction of speech is not just an annoyance to heaven. It is a disruption of law itself, a declaration that you do not yet trust the system God has given you, which is the system of speech, the system of command, the system of covenant language, where yes means yes, and abundance is not just believed, but spoken without apology, without reversal, without theatricality, without the need for evidence or permission or trending logic. And I tell you this now, not to shame you, but to awaken you. Every time you say that's too expensive, you are not making an observation. You are issuing a decree that the thing is beyond you and that wealth is not present. Every time you say, I can't afford that, you are not being practical. You are being prophetic in the wrong direction. Every time you say, money doesn't grow on trees, you are denying the orchard of divine ideas planted inside you. And every time you say, it's not working, you are not being honest. You are being spiritually forgetful, because the law is always working, always responding, always rearranging. But you must let it do its work by refusing to interrupt it with fear-drenched words, sarcastic jokes, or realistic poison that makes you sound wise to others, but deaf to your own destiny. So I challenge you now, with holy defiance, to tear out the phrases from your mouth that no longer serve your wealth, to cancel the linguistic agreements with lack, to remove from your vocabulary every phrase that validates limitation or glorifies struggle or makes small what God has called holy, and in its place you will speak what is true, not just what is comfortable, not just what is trendy, not what your friends expect, but what is metaphysically aligned with divine supply, and you will say, "If it is for me, it comes freely, joyfully, and quickly." And you will say, "Everything I need is on its way now in divine sequence." And you will say, "I expect miracles because I sow miracle words." And you will say, "My life is governed by the spiritual law of increase, not the emotional law of comparison." And above all, you will say, "It is done." Let every word henceforth be weighed like gold, because it is gold, and let your daily declarations be sealed not only with passion but with spiritual discipline. For the true wealth builder is not the one who yells loudest or posts most often, but the one who governs their language like a king guards his treasury, who no longer tolerates contradiction on the tongue, who speaks in one voice, walks in one law, and rests in the unshakable rhythm of divine order. There comes a point on the spiritual path when speaking the word is no longer an act of reaching, of aspiring, of hoping towards some future state of supply or status or sanctification, but a holy embodiment, a divine incarnation, a vibrational decision to walk, live, breathe, and occupy as one who already has it, as one who no longer begs heaven but builds with it, who no longer apologizes for their power, but steps into it with reverence and rhythm, who no longer consults appearance but communes with law, who no longer scans the horizon to see who has what or how they got there, but gazes inward into the soul's treasury and finds there the gold mine of consciousness, the inexhaustible bank of divine identity, the ever-unfolding scroll of I Am, and from that inner knowing begins to move in such a way that all of life rearranges around the new declaration, not because the world has changed, but because the walker has changed their gait, changed their garments, changed their inner gravity, changed their walk from one of striving to one of sovereign stride. And this walk, beloved, is not metaphor alone. It is posture, tone, schedule, wardrobe, offering, response, silence, speech, ritual, and presence, all braided together into a living testimony that says without speaking, "I know who I am. I know what I carry. I know that nothing is missing, nothing is late, nothing is locked, nothing is lost, and nothing is limited except what I fail to claim, what I refuse to embody, what I delay by my own hesitation to step into the identity that heaven has already assigned to me, not because I earned it, but because I agreed with it, because I stopped arguing with divine law, stopped asking for what was already mine, stopped praying from absence and started prophesying from union, stopped dragging my feet and started walking as the finished product of spiritual perfection dressed in human skin, crowned not by applause, but by alignment. When you walk as one who already has it, you do not wait for confirmation from the bank account. You do not need approval from your peers. You do not seek signs from the marketplace, or likes from the internet, or validation from those who still live by the sweat of the brow instead of the certainty of the spoken word. You rise in the morning and dress in dominion. You speak to the mirror as the agent of divine circulation. You make your tea like royalty. You sit at your desk as a channel of unseen supply. You send your emails as prophetic activations. You make your payments with laughter and praise. You carry your body like wealth itself has filled your bones. You speak to your day like a master craftsman giving instructions to the angels. You choose your thoughts like a king chooses counsel, and you walk out your door not in search of opportunity, but in full expectation that what belongs to you will appear, not because you're lucky or lucky adjacent or liked by others, but because you are in covenant with divine law. And the law always recognizes its own voice. And if you should ask, "But what if I don't feel it yet? What if I still feel small, still feel unsure, still feel poor?" I tell you, walk anyway, for the feeling will follow the form. The oil flows only on the moving feet. The wine is poured for those who set the table. The miracle is reserved for those who step out of the boat before the waves calm down. And so you walk not because you feel rich, but because you are rich in truth, rich in inheritance, rich in spiritual DNA, rich in I Am, rich in access to the treasury of all that God is and has and loves and gives. And as you walk, declare, "My steps are ordered by divine wisdom. My gait is clothed in provision. My feet walk on paths of gold. Everywhere I go, I am recognized by wealth because I walk like its twin. Walk like you already have it, beloved, because you do, not in some delayed future, not in a distant upgrade, not when the right door opens or the right person calls or the stars align, but now, in this breath, in this identity, in this law that is alive and ready to respond not to your hesitation but to your declaration, not to your fear but to your frequency, not to your confusion but to your clarity. And the clearest signal you can send to heaven is to walk as if nothing is missing, as if everything is working, as if wealth has already bowed to your voice and risen to meet your pace. Let me now speak to you of a story not often told in the language of logic or economy, but in the rhythm of law, the poetry of dominion, and the cadence of identity spoken before it is seen. For there was a girl, no older than 19, not adorned in the garments of worldly success, not validated by resume, not backed by pedigree or platform or capital, not enrolled in some fast-track funnel to fortune, or followed by crowds shouting her name, but filled instead with a holy audacity to believe what God said of her above what the world showed her, filled with the kind of reckless reverence that dared to test the law by living it, by speaking it, by making her tongue the altar and her breath the offering. And for 12 days, just 12, she said one thing and one thing only, not to the world, not to the critics, not to her parents or her peers, but to herself, in secret, behind closed doors, in the stillness of her becoming. I am wealth. And let us not misunderstand the magnitude of this utterance, for in those 3 words she did not merely wish or want or fantasize or affirm in vague tones. No, she declared the end from the beginning. She summoned the invisible substance of divine supply to take form in her reality. She removed the veil between promise and possession, between divine right and daily reality, and made no apologies, no disclaimers, no self-effacing exceptions, just the rhythm of the word spoken like breath, like prayer, like truth cutting through the fog of generational limitation and internal contradiction and external conditioning. And as she spoke, again and again, I am wealth, not with emotion but with authority, not from desperation but from decision, not for applause but for alignment. Heaven took notice, and so did law, and so did the structure of supply hidden behind what we call time. She was mocked, of course, for the world cannot bear a mirror of its own unbelief. She was ridiculed for her declarations, laughed at for her confidence, dismissed as delusional for speaking wealth when her bank account said otherwise, for calling herself divine royalty while she still rode the bus, for writing down large sums and giving thanks before anything changed. But she did not flinch, did not waver, did not dilute the word with doubt, did not ask permission to believe, did not wait for proof before claiming possession, because she knew, somewhere deep in the marrow of her spiritual memory, that God does not respond to the faint-hearted or the politely hopeful, but to the one who speaks with boldness as though the decree has already echoed through eternity and now simply waits to be echoed again on earth. And on the 13th day, as silently and swiftly as the tide obeys the moon, her phone rang with an invitation from a distant acquaintance, one she barely remembered, offering her a partnership on a business idea that had already gone viral overseas, needing only a voice, only a name, only a presence, and she became that presence not because she chased it, not because she earned it in hours or education or effort, but because she had already become it in speech, in alignment, in vibration, in the secret garden of identity where all harvests begin, not in the outer field, but in the soil of consciousness. Within 3 months, her business cleared $200,000. Within 6, she moved into a home she once walked past and whispered blessings toward. Within a year, she was mentoring others not in strategy but in speech, not in hustle but in law, not in what to do but in how to be. And she said the same thing to them that she said to herself in that quiet room before anything moved. Say it until you don't flinch. Say it until your nervous system kneels. Say it until wealth forgets how to pass you by and instead builds a house with your name on the deed. Say it until you become it. Say it until you remember that you always were it. This is not superstition, beloved. This is spiritual law. This is the divine blueprint behind the scenes of visibility. This is how the word made flesh becomes the word made fortune, not because of volume, not because of effort, but because of unbreakable agreement. And if a 19-year-old girl without title, team, or track record could do it, so can you. But you must decide now. Will you wait for wealth to recognize you? Or will you speak like one who already carries it in the bones, in the blood, in the breath? And now, dear listener, we arrive at the final threshold, the turning point where the old story collapses like a mirage in the sun, and a new decree steps forward like a crowned king once exiled, returning not with apology, but with prophecy fulfilled. For you have come this far not to receive more knowledge, not to gather another affirmation, not to stack more concepts or chase another technique, but to remember. To remember that you were never meant to run behind the mirage of wealth like a beggar chasing a chariot. You were never ordained to strain your soul in pursuit of thrones built by other hands. You were never designed to play the role of outsider watching the parade of prosperity pass you by as if God had favorites and you weren't among them. For the truth is violent in its mercy, and it will not let you stay hidden anymore. You are the wealth, you are the vessel, you are the current, you are the mouthpiece of divine provision made visible in time. And what I say next is not metaphor, it is not poetry, it is not hopeful suggestion, it is law. And law does not change for your doubts, does not bend for your history, does not tremble before your past errors, does not recoil at your missed opportunities. For the law only asks one thing of you: agreement, alignment, identity. And once you grant it your full yes, once you stop speaking of lack as if it is your loyal companion, once you stop deferring your inheritance to some mystical future where you'll finally feel ready, once you stop worshiping money as the master and instead speak to it as the servant of divine ideas, it will rise to meet you in ways that defy all spreadsheets and statistics and syllabi of success, handed down by those who never understood that real power was never in the market but always in the mouth. Hear me now. Wealth is not a prize to be won. It is a rhythm to be remembered, and that rhythm begins not in your hustle, not in your marketing, not in your networking or positioning or online presence. It begins in your inner temple where the word speaks and the angels of increase obey. It begins in the sanctuary of your spoken agreement where the law of divine compensation hears your voice and says, "Yes, this is the one who speaks from the throne, not from the waiting room." It begins when you no longer ask the world for permission to rise, but command the gates to lift their heads because the King of Glory, the I Am presence clothed in your voice, has arrived. Do you see it yet? Do you feel the shift? You are not the one outside looking in. You are not the one hoping to be noticed. You are not the one trying to build proximity to power. You are the current of power in motion. You are the frequency that money responds to. You are the living echo of God's abundance spoken into form. And when you speak not from fear, but from fullness, not from doubt, but from dominion, not from desperation, but from decree, the entire structure of seen and unseen substance rearranges itself to carry out your word. Because your word is not idle breath. Your word is the gavel in the courtroom of divine law. And when you strike it down in faith, it reverberates through dimensions and delivers the harvest on earth. So do not wait one more day. Do not return to small talk and small prayers. Do not dilute your decree with the vinegar of realism or the sarcasm of culture or the disclaimers of doubt. Do not chase another dollar, another mentor, another model. Speak. Speak as one already seated. Speak as one already assigned. Speak as one already confirmed by heaven and recognized by divine treasury. Say it even now, right now. I do not chase wealth. I do not beg for abundance. I do not envy the billionaire. I am the wealth. I am the portal. I am the mouth of divine overflow. I am. And when you speak like this, not just once, not just emotionally, not just on good days, but with the consistency of covenant, with the rhythm of royalty, with the stillness of certainty. You will find that wealth no longer visits you temporarily. It will begin to abide, to anchor, to obey, for it has recognized its master, and you have remembered your name. And now, beloved listener, chosen vessel of divine supply and invisible royalty crowned in spirit, long before any bank ever acknowledged your name, I speak to you not as a motivator, not as a teacher of technique, not as a figure dispensing tips and tricks for temporary increase, but as the voice of ancient truth awakened in you again, as the clarion sound of eternal law echoing through your own soul with words you've always known but may have forgotten, words that were yours before the world dressed you in striving and scarcity, before culture clothed you in comparison and delay, before life tricked you into believing that money lived somewhere far from the breath in your mouth. And those words are simply this: you don't chase billionaires, you don't chase anything. You speak, you decree, you align, you assume, you become, and it is done, not by the will of flesh or by the system of men or by the calendar of the culture, but by the spiritual architecture that hears your word as final. Let every distraction now fall away. Let every voice of limitation, whether from your upbringing, your past, your news feed, or your own inner saboteur, be silenced under the weight of this truth. The word is not just a tool, it is the throne itself. Your speech is not a means to impress, it is the medium of creation. Your declarations are not wishful thinking, they are legislative action in the courtroom of cosmic authority. And the moment you stop playing small with your tongue, the moment you refuse to contradict your throne with your chatter, the moment you replace every "I'm trying" with "I am," that moment becomes the axis upon which your whole financial future turns. That moment becomes the pivot where begging becomes blessing, hoping becomes holding, chasing becomes crowning, and identity overtakes imitation once and for all. This is not theory. This is law. This is not suggestion. This is your inheritance. And the time has come not to merely listen, but to echo back, not to agree in silence, but to establish in sound, not to take notes, but to take dominion. So I challenge you now, not for drama, not for hype, but as a sacred rite of passage. Speak your throne decree in the open, in the comment section below, not for validation, but for vibration, not to be seen by others, but to be heard by heaven, not because I asked you to, but because your spirit has been waiting for this moment of audible alignment for years, decades, lifetimes. Type it boldly, rhythmically, and without apology. I do not chase wealth. I speak as wealth. I am the multimillionaire by divine law. I am the voice of supernatural provision. I am the carrier of increase for my generation. And let this not be a sentence you type once, but the song your life sings every day forward. Let it be the sound your mirror reflects, and your morning begins with, and your night seals with. Let it be the new name you answer to, and the frequency your world must now obey. For it is written, and cannot be reversed, that you shall decree a thing, and it shall be established unto you. You were never meant to follow wealth around like a shadow. You were meant to stand in the light and cast the shadow that others follow. So say it one more time, not as repetition, but as revelation made real through your own voice, your own lungs, your own sacred yes. I don't chase billionaires. I speak the word and become one. And if this truth has burned even a single ember in your soul, then subscribe now, not to follow me, but to stay in the rhythm of remembrance, to keep drinking from the fountain of law, to remain soaked in the atmosphere of divine dominion until there is not a molecule of lack left in your vocabulary or vision. You are not who they told you you were. You are the speaker of law, the heir of substance, the living expression of I am. Walk in it now, speak in it daily, and never bow to the illusion of chasing again.